you're sitting on a gold mine and don't even realize it. Your gifts, passions, skills, talents, your wisdom, those are your biggest assets that you were actually uniquely designed to monetize, to use in order to help the greater good and help other people. And then we've got the full spectrum of abundance. Abundance isn't just about money, abundance is about bettering people's lives, helping people, making people feel connected, helping people reach their goals faster and easier while you're also being well compensated for being able to do this. And what happens is you start looking outside of yourself, thinking, I don't know what it is I could do in order to make more money in my business, or in order to start a business, or in order to make money online. And you think so narrowly. And the very things that are going to get you where you want to go and make you that life changing cash and get you the freedom that you want are staring at you right back in your face. We just tend to overcomplicate things when we're not thinking clearly. We tend to make everything harder than it needs to be because you likely were taught that in order to have success, in order to have the riches, in order to have the freedom, in order to have the lifestyle that you want, it's got to be hard. It's got to be sacrificing. It's got to be all consuming. And it simply is not true. And because we're all about giving facts here and evidence and receipts, I have brought on a guest today who is undeniable proof that your actual experiences in life can easily be turned into thriving entrepreneurship. Erin MacNeil came out of my Selling with Soul signature program that I run once a year, and she is a spa and beauty industry business coach. She had worked for other people for many, many years, good and bad experiences, was all over the world. And she was making pennies on the dollar with how much money she was making these other businesses. And she reached a certain point where that just wasn't working for her anymore. So when she got to a point where she just couldn't do that anymore, that grind just wasn't available for her. And she went, what can I do? What can I do to be making this money for myself instead of pennies on the dollar for someone else? It was staring right back at her. You're going to get so inspired by this episode and be reminded that everything you've gone through, everything you've learned, all the schooling, all the trial and error, all the hardships, all the stuff wasn't for nothing. It actually was all happening to bring you to the point of executing on what you were meant to do all along. If you're tired of hearing the same old basic mindset and motivational fluff talk, you've come to the right show. Welcome to Project Me with Tiffany Carter, the podcast, where we dish on everything from managing that crazy brain of yours to manifesting abundance to my straightforward, actionable steps that will make you major money online. Now, I'm not your typical multimillionaire entrepreneur. It takes a small village to keep my anxiety and depression in check. I'm inherently disorganized with an intense obsession with office supplies. Your girl here is a digital marketing content expert who's generated over $200 million in sales. I promise by tuning in twice a week, you will get a much needed refreshing dose of truth, clarity, and cash-making advice. Now let's get to it. What up, my people, my posse, my fellow crazies? It's your host, Tiffany Carter, and this is the show that is going to help you grow your business, your bank account, that big, beautiful brain of yours, your relationships, your abundance, and everything in between. There's a couple things that you need to be aware of, or you're going to be really upset with me. So I do a 2-day live in-person mastermind event only once a year, and this always sells out. And then people freak out that they missed it and they go, well, when's your next one this year? There is no next one. I do one once a year. It's not some marketing speak. It really is once a year. And we are about to release that to the public. If you want first dibs on this, you have to be on my free Secret Posse Weekly Digest email list. And that link is in the show notes. It's also in the description on YouTube. It's ProjectME with Tiffany.com/secret posse. That's where you're going to get first dibs. The other place you're going to get first dibs is by being in my paid Project Me Posse business coaching membership. And when you're listening to this episode, this guest here came out of my Selling with Soul signature program, and she is now in the posse, and she's seeing incredible results. Again, undeniable proof of what is waiting for you on the other side of taking action, of doing the thing, of going full throttle, of not half-assing your dream and the life that you want anymore. You're going to want to get in here. I'm not sure if there's going to be any spots left in the posse at the time of this airing, but the page will tell you if it's full. It'll say full when you go to click the button to join. So you can slip in there, hopefully. And if not, you're going to have to wait till there's spots. That link is in the show notes as well. And it's projectmewithtiffany.com/projectmeposse. So you may have seen everything going on with my signature program, Selling with Soul, that I only launch once a year. And I did something that I've never done before here at ProjectME. And we really wanted to celebrate the student who was coming with such humility and really was genuinely there to serve and not just sitting there going, what can I get? What can I get? And someone who has really gone all in with everything that we taught. And I was like, I will have to feature whoever this is on the show because they, one, deserve it. And two, there's a certain personality makeup of that person. And there's a reason why they're successful. And there's a reason why they invested in Selling with Soul. And there's a reason why they continue to invest in themselves and they have success that I felt like all of you guys would be delighted to hear. And then I was joking with Erin MacNeil before this that we did make sure we vetted that she wasn't totally crazy. I was like, I mean, you are a little crazy.
I am.
But like,
I'm a redhead. That should say it all.
And so is Emmy. So I was like, and Emmy, I asked Emmy when I go, are you just like favoring another redhead? Because I know this is stuff you guys do.
Yeah, girl, we're rare. So
I feel like I see gingers everywhere now. Like I feel you guys are breeding at a high rate. Something's happening.
Yeah, I mean, like my dog has red hair. So yeah, I mean, that's as close as we're getting to a replica.
Oh my God, that's so funny. So let's get into all of this. So being in this aesthetic space, all of you girlies who do, whether it's permanent makeup, you do injections, you do lashes, you do spa treatments, whatever it is, I hear the same things over and over and over again. It's so saturated. It's all based on price. You know, people are going to so and so down the street because, you know, they charge less money and they put themselves in this trap of how could I possibly be successful with everything that's going on in the market? And what do you have to say about that?
It's so interesting because, yeah, like most of my clients are saying the same thing. Like there's injectors popping up on every single corner. Erin, how am I going to figure this out? I have to. The story is I have to compete on price. Otherwise, nobody's going to pick me. Or the other story that I hear is I'm newer or I only have 1 year experience. But the thing is, like, if you only fixate on price, you devalue what you bring as a service provider. Like all of your years of training, your experience, your way, like you are the USP. So the fact that you only price your service based on the products you use is like you are setting yourself up to fail because that's a capped market. You can't keep increasing the price point because that's actually already set by the company that sold you that product. So for a lot of people, they think it's saturated because they're only fixated on, well, I paid X amount for this product, so I can only sell it for that. Or I paid X for this treatment, whatever, laser machine, so I can only sell it. And it's like, no, but what about all of the other things that when I walk into your spa and I get a coffee or a tea, or I get a little takeaway, or maybe you have a beautiful lounge or a massage chair, this is all added value, right?
And what about your general like expertise.
Yeah. Right.
Like I'm not, my ass isn't getting an injection from the mall. Okay. And
No.
it's like, I do not look for any aesthetic procedures based on price. Has anyone not seen the show Botched? Like this typically doesn't end well.
100%.
I thought this was a good time to take a break and remind you that if you want to have a rich boss summer, you've got to make some money moves and you need to make them now. We're already halfway through the year. What do you want the rest of your year to look like? Do you want it to be more of the same, or do you want to be cashing in on your gifts, passions, skills, and talents online all through the night, where your time and energy is not dependent all the time on you being able to make in money? We create offer stacking. You learn my exact way so that you can have a nice portfolio of products where you're making sales, whether you're off vacationing, you're off at the lake, you have a busy work week, and now you have money coming in from all these different areas. And all of that combined ends up being 10,000 a month, 15,000 a month, 25,000 a month, and it only continues to grow from there. I teach you how to do this step by step inside my ProjectME Posse business coaching membership. We have an annual option now, which I truly feel is the best option. You get 2 months for free. Plus, you get my Nail Your Niche Masterclass, which also includes a training on how to properly optimize your Instagram bio so you can get thousands and thousands of more qualified eyes on your account. When I ran that masterclass live, people paid $500 for that. So you're getting that for free by doing the annual membership, plus my content creation made easy course bundle, which comes with my exact content planner, my fill in the blank post template, and me literally teaching you how to create profitable content for any type of business, any type of industry without having a ton of tech experience. I don't care if you grew up in the generation where you had a phone in your hand, or you grew up in a generation where you had a phone hanging on a wall with a 500-foot long cord that wrapped around your entire house. My grandma had one of these, and I will never forget that. Also, I had my own phone line, and let me tell you, it was a vibe. So to get inside the posse, you just need to swipe up. The link is in the show notes. You can go to projectmewithttiffany.com/Project Posse. If it is full, when you go to click to join, it will say full. There are also month-to-month options available, but personally, the best value is doing the annual option. I make more money on you guys doing the month-to-month, okay? And I'm steering you to do the annual because we like a deal over here. All right, let's go back to the interview.
And the other thing is like, so there's a presentation that I do, and it's like talking about brand standards. And you could be the standard of Louis Vuitton, or you could be the standard of Dollarama. I don't know if you guys have that in the US.
No, but I would probably go to it. Like that's a dollar store.
Right. But like, yeah, it's a dollar store. And so there's just a different standard. And so even though you can get similar products from Walmart or the dollar store, or you can get one from, let's say, Zara and Louis Vuitton, but like there's a different experience, and the type of client that is looking for a specific experience will pay for the experience and not just the product or like the thing that you're injecting or the laser, right? Like they're paying for, I want comfort, I want safety, I want expertise, I want a lounge, I want you to dote on me, like I want scents in the air, like all of the things.
I want access, right?
Yeah.
Like I just hired someone to help me with my hormone health and all that stuff. And it's like, I pay for concierge medicine now. And yes, I can hear some listeners saying, yes, Tiffany, but you can do that because you make millions of dollars and da 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 da. Even when I wasn't, I would have probably found a way to pay for that, because the cost of going after something that's like cheap ends up being expensive. And I would love to hear your thoughts on that in the aesthetic world. Like, even if we look at like nails, like I know when I like first came down here at the beach and I didn't have like my normal nail person, and I was like vetting nail places. I mean, I can spot a cheap set, can't you?
Yeah. Oh, totally. And And so I just had mine done yesterday because we're traveling this weekend. But for me, same thing. When I moved into this neighborhood, I was like, oh man, I'm so far away from my nail lady. Now, in downtown Toronto, the nail lady that I went to, I'm spending $125 on a manicure. And some people are like, oh my God, that's too much. And I'm like, here's the thing, it is absolute perfection every single time. But if I go and pay the $50 one, which is also okay, but the reality is like, I don't know how it's going to turn out. It's going to be lumpy and bumpy. Like they've literally come back and they're
they're
crooked.
thick. You get
They're so thick. So thick you can't pick up a quarter or anything. You're like, how do I pick anything up? Yeah, I mean, like you pay for what you're getting. And especially in aesthetics, right? It's like you can tell the difference right away.
I mean,
And
I want to talk about some scandalous real stuff. Now, for you guys who don't know in the audience, I have another business I've had 16 years, and it's in the medical digital marketing space for pharma companies, medical companies, spas, but it's heavily in aesthetics. Like I've been in the derm and plastics world for many, many years. One of the things here are two things I know for a fact happen. And I will not represent, we will not take clients who do this. If we find out they do, we drop them. One is things like lasers. They will turn the settings down on things like laser hair removal. So you have to come more times. And then when you say, oh, I thought you said this was approximately 6 to 10 sessions and it's taking longer, they just turn around and blame it on you and your hair type, and everyone's different. Second thing is diluting substances such as Botox. I would love
yeah,
to hear what you have to say around this kind of thing that goes on in this world. And I think it goes on out of scarcity. I have to dilute this in order to be able to be competitive with my pricing because I don't know how to market my brand as a whole to make money.
well, it comes back to like a worthiness, right? Because it's like when you have that deeper, like, I don't feel I bring a lot of value, therefore I have to hustle for my worth and I have to overgive and do all of these things. Like, you want your resources to stretch so you can make the most of it. I do see it a lot, and I've heard a lot of horror stories. But after a while, same. We don't work with those clients who are like, they get on a call and they're like, "How are you going to make me money?" I'm like, whoa, whoa, whoa! Like, I help bring out different traits and potential. I help you see things that maybe you're not really seeing and help point you in the right direction. Like any coach, I coach, you get out on the field and you actually have to do the work. But there's so many people doing, and even also, I lived in Asia for a time. And so
what part were you in? Please tell me Korea, because I have a fixation on Korean skincare.
No,
Okay.
I never made it there. I lived in Beijing, China, and then I also lived in Hong Kong. And the amount of, like, again, it exists there, but it's amplified because population is so many people. And you just see so many things that is like out of scarcity. They're making replica machines, replica products, replica. Like, I just saw something on TikTok,
like a counterfeit, like device.
100%. So
wow.
I literally went in to a clinic because I wanted like the non-surgical facelift, like back in the day. And I was going in and I wanted something similar to Thermage or old therapy. So I went in and I literally had them write down the serial number, and I went and I called the company because you just don't know. But as you mentioned, that you actually don't know that as a consumer. So I think that obviously, like, do your homework. And this is why, you get what you pay for. And if you're really, like, again, I find those people who have a scarcity mentality, they do attract clients who also have scarcity mentality. That's like, I just want to pay the least amount possible, but get the most result I've ever gotten. And normally those are like the most headache clients.
No, they are the worst. Period.
Because,
in any specialty, they're the worst. That's when you guys, I don't mean you, but in general, you guys price things lower because you think more people will buy, or that's the right thing to do because I'm in a service-based industry and maybe it's coming from a good place. Like, I want to help more people. but you end up attracting the most entitled people. These are the people who will actually do chargebacks on their credit cards and screw you.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah, they've got your number. They know what like they know where you're at and they will come find you and they want a refund and then some. Like there's just like there are people out there like that, but again, like working in the spa industry in specific over the last 20 years and even for myself when I think about why did I even get in this industry? For me, I came from such a broken place that being a service provider made me feel good that I was helping other people. And
And they
actually
get like an instant feeling too, right?
and they're like, oh my God. So them validating that I made them feel good makes me feel good. And so you see this like over the years as I like climbed the ranks and I eventually went into leadership, I see this in my team and different, people that I've helped develop. And you actually see this. So when you think about that scarcity mindset, I've opened a business. Okay, now I have to compete on price because if I don't, nobody's going to buy. Well, you have to actually ask yourself, like, why do you feel like you're not worth a lot? Why is it that, Sally Sue down the street can charge double, but you can't? Like, that isn't about the market is saturated. That's something in your mind that you think you're not available for more, or like that's attached to your worthiness. And I know that because I was that person. I started out as an esthetician and I remember what it felt like. And it's like most women who get into, and I say women, but most women get into the industry because they just want to feel good. They need to like really fill that void of I want validation. I want to know that what I offer has value and I'm worthy. And so a lot of people when they start their business, they're like, okay, I'll start off in my neurotoxin is going to be like the lowest, what I call like basement bargain price. And then before you know it, after, working with them, I'm like, girl, you literally are giving everything away. You're not even getting paid. Like, are you okay with that? At what point are you going to realize that you have enough skill to command like a high dollar? Like, you're worth that. And a lot of them, very like consciously, they've never connected the dots. They just blame, like, oh, it's the market.
I did not connect the dots until I lost almost everything I had. And I was working with a private law of attraction coach like in manifestation. And I still didn't get the depth of the worth and the money and how that shows up literally in every area of our life. And it's like sometimes I still am blown away about how it can show up. So did you start in the corporate spa world, or did you start as an esthetician and then go in the corporate spa world?
Yeah, I started as an esthetician just like at a med spa. Like,
what was your jam? What was your specialty?
So I started out as an esthetician doing manicures and pedicures.
Shut
I
up.
initially, yeah, like literally manicures and pedicures. And then it was just on the cusp of when Medi spas were becoming a thing. And I was like, I think I could go for that because I think there's a bit more money there and there's more business opportunities. So, like, in my head, I was like, I'm looking for ways where I could earn the equivalent of an MBA. Because back in the day, in my mind, I was like, I'm not smart enough to apply to business school. So I'll just do this. And that will get me out of my small town, like crappy town or whatever. So I worked my way up and I was like esthetician. Then I was a laser tech. And then I became a trainer. And then I became a manager. And I was working in med spas. But when I left Canada and moved to Bermuda, I didn't have an option to work at med spas because there you had to be like a doctor or a nurse. So I got back into traditional spa and I went in as a manager at a luxury hotel. And it was so interesting because I had to learn the corporate world for the first time because I'd worked for these like small
that had to
like
be
med spas.
Shocking. Because see, I started in corporate, but for someone who started, you started basically as like an independent contractor, right? You still
100%
your own boss in a sense. And then you went to corporate. Oh my God, that must have been a mind fuck.
It was because you're like, I have to learn a whole new set of rules on how life goes.
And the rules aren't necessarily written.
No. And so because I was like at these smaller places, there were so many things you could do in management that like in a corporate structure, you can't yell at people. Like, right. So I was like, and even like I would walk fast and I'm like really direct and they're like, Erin, you can't do that. You can't do that here. And I'm like, what do you mean? You're telling me not to be myself? I figured it out. But even like going into that environment was so difficult because like I was in a new country. And even though, yes, it's technically sort of in North America, it was like learning the
No,
culture
I've been
of
to
like,
Bermuda. It is very,
it's different.
it's gorgeous, but very unique.
It's unique. And I was around wealthy people for the first time. So a lot of my money stories, my worthiness, I was newly married at the time. And like all of these things were changing. And literally what happened to me, and at the top of the call, you were talking about humility. That is like, that was the turning point in my career where I was learning how to be in corporate and they were shaping and molding me, as right? That's kind of how it works. And you either fall in line or you don't. And
exactly. Well said.
like it, yeah, because there's no option, right? And so when I was there, I was crushing it because in the smaller like med spa where it was independent, my thing was like creating profitability and numbers, right? I was hustling for my worth. I was proving like I have worth, right? And it was through the dollars. And when I got there, my team told me after 1 year, like, you're the worst boss we've ever worked with. I thought I was crushing it. Oh, yeah. I thought I was crushing it because I'm like, my boss told me the benchmark to success was turn this operation around, make sure it makes money.
Of course. So and that makes sense.
I'm like, but the team was like, you're not approachable. You have no humility, no compassion. I can't talk to you. You don't include us in anything. It's your way or no way. And it was like the biggest wake up call for me where I was like, damn, shit. I thought I was crushing it. And I literally, actually, I was in California when I got the news that everyone on my team hated me. They did like an annual survey and it came back so awful. And my HR called me while I was on like secondment in, there was another hotel in Silicon Valley. So I was helping out there. And I literally cried for 3 days because I'm like, how am I going to face these people? They fucking hate me. What am I going to do? I don't know any other way other than to be me. And so I was fulfilling that corporate agenda, which was like numbers, 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 numbers. But the team was like, we don't want to work for this bitch. She's nutty. So I had to figure out, and that's literally when I started to like lean into leadership workshops, books, TED Talks. I was like, if I don't turn this shit around, I'm going to lose my job. Because also like just the environment there, I was a foreigner and that's what they call you. Like you're a foreigner. So it was going to be very easy to replace me with someone who was local because that, they were going to make the argument for it. Either way, I figured it out and I actually went back and I asked for everyone who personally wrote a letter, which was actually quite a bit. I had maybe 20 people on my team at that time where they literally said to the HR director, like, I want to write a personal letter of all the ways I'm affected by like this bitch.
That would be my worst nightmare. I am give you a lot of credit. I have to tell you, the old Tiffany, not Tiffany today. I'm going to be straight up with what I would have done. I would have probably quit and never gone back in. I would have been horrified.
Oh, I thought the same thing. I'm like, how the hell am I going back? Because I was actually not on property. I was somewhere else. So I thought like, thankfully I had 2 weeks before I had to go back on property. And I was like, what am I going to do? I have no fucking idea how I'm going to figure this out. And I literally like just something told me like, Erin, just apologize. Just fucking apologize. Like you don't have to like run everyone over and be a bulldozer. And so when I did that and I got back and I called in everyone one by one, like it was a whole day. And I just like ego completely dropped. And I was like, listen, I had no idea I was showing up like that. I had no idea that you felt like that coming to work. Like I can't even imagine. I would hate coming to work. Right. And I literally apologized to everyone, asked them like, how can I turn this around? And so again, like, your question was about corporate. And so what I figured out was how can I still be me, still fulfill the agenda, but also still like have work that I enjoy, because I didn't think that I had a plan B. I'm like, I'm trying to climb this ladder to the top, right?
I
Because
see. You weren't yet going, I could
no,
make millions doing my own thing.
no,
Your
I had
plan
no idea.
was the typical corporate plan, which was mine, is I'm going to just keep climbing up. Okay.
That's exactly what I did. And so anyway, we turned it around, and like the results were phenomenal. When I actually dropped my ego and really learned proper leadership skills, I doubled profit. It was like, and I didn't even try. It was just
Isn't
more
that
like,
interesting? Because it can seem counterintuitive
yeah,
when you're focusing on the people and nurturing them. And it's like, well, won't the profit slip if we do that? But you get so much more out of the people and their service is better. And then your profits doubled.
totally. Because you do really realize that people quit bosses, they don't quit jobs. Right. And you're like, I don't want to be that person that you hate every day or hate looking at, or like coming to work and dread it. So basically from there, I got notice from corporate office in Hong Kong. And then that's when I got offered a job, and I went and lived in Beijing. I spent time in Thailand. I lived in Hong Kong. And I was the one that went in and recovered all of these failing spas in their portfolio, and ultimately climbed that ladder to the pinnacle, the crown jewel, opened it. And it was like, okay, now I've ticked off all the boxes, Erin. Like, what are you doing next? And that's when I decided, like, I've actually really like bottled up some great information. I have great experience. And that's when, a few years ago, COVID hit. And I saw so many people in the spa industry starting to have to, like, they were losing their business because they opened because they loved it and they had a passion, but they didn't have business acumen. They didn't have strategy. They didn't really understand how to run it. And I'm like, I could just like bottle up everything I've learned and put it in a program and show the average woman who opened a business for a dream of a better life, I can show her how to do it. That's what I did.
And what gave you the balls, so to speak, to leave corporate? Because I know I'm not the only one listening that's going, I mean, you're living in really cool cities at like 5-star resorts in the spa world, probably getting a shit ton of free treatments. It sounds pretty fucking glamorous, and I'm sure you were making a six-figure salary with bonuses and such. How did you take those golden handcuffs off?
I decided that my happiness was worth more than the paycheck. Like I was literally getting gaslit every single day. The goalpost would move every single day, no matter how many benchmarks of new historical highs we hit. It was never good enough. And I was like, this shit is not actually going to end. It's only getting worse. And I like really started to wake up to the fact that like they're going to just replace me. Cause also I remember you telling your story about getting sick. Same thing happened to me, that my sleeping heart rate. So I like wear an Apple Watch, and back then I tracked everything. I literally had a resting sleeping heart rate of 98.
Oh
I
my
was like
God.
on the verge
You
of
were
having
like
a heart attack.
pure fight or flight.
100%. Nervous system on fire all day, every day, drinking a bottle of wine so I could just fall asleep. Like it was bad. And I'm like, what am I doing this for? So that I can give this, billion dollar company another extra million, 2 million, 4 million, whatever. I have to do that for myself. So, like, who cares? And the thing was for me that I was like, okay, how much money do I really need to feel safe enough? And so I saved up a little bit of money, and I was like, I hit a point where I was like, I actually don't give a shit if I have to start over, because it's got to be better than this. It was so bad.
That's when you know it's time.
Yep, it's time. And like when I handed in my resignation letter, my boss literally was like, well, how are you going to make money? And I said, well, I figured it out this far. I think I'm going to figure it out. So don't you worry about me. Like,
I love when people asked me that. And these were people that like really didn't give a shit about me.
no.
It's like, so now you're concerned how I'm going to pay my bills. Like, I'll be okay, sweetie.
Yeah. Which
Thank
is
you.
really interesting because here's the amazing part. A year and a half later, I get a message from that same boss who said, "Hey, Erin, I just wanted to let you know you're one of the first people I'm telling that I resigned from my job, and you inspired me to do it because I realized how toxic this environment is." You're welcome.
Love.
But,
Love how that
I
works.
genuinely felt like I know what she's talking about, but I was like,
Right.
like,
Well, it's like that. I mean, I'll be honest. I get off when I see some of the former kind of haters watching my shit. I
yeah,
delight in it.
yeah, go ahead and comment, like, if you will, right? It's,
When
it's so,
you were going through your divorce, was that when was that in all of this?
oh, that was in the middle of me going to Beijing. And I gotta say, like, okay, so if anyone's ever been to Bermuda, like there's almost no direct flights anywhere. So to get to Beijing, it was three different connections. And I cried on every connection. And I'm like, oh my God, am I making the wrong choice? And it literally took me 4 months, maybe 6, where I almost went back. And I'm talking about like if you've ever been in a relationship where you were more alone and feeling lonely all day, every day, being married, I was like, in my head, I was 31 or 30 years older. I don't even remember. And I'm like, there's no way that I'm going to live this life for the rest of my life. Like, this is ridiculous. I'm way too young to be in this spot. And I was so afraid when I first went. Number one, like, if you've never been, nobody speaks English.
Oh, I
Nobody.
have been, and it is
It's chaos.
it's New York City on steroids. I mean, it is pure chaos, and you're right. No one speaks English.
No one speaks English. And if you've ever experienced the most foggy day of your life, that's every day, all day, except it's not fog, it's pollution.
that's that's part of why everyone wears a mask. It's not just because of the bird flu.
No, exactly. Exactly. So, yeah, I mean, like for me, when I first went and going through that, so I was like going through the stuff with the team, making a big transition in my personal life, which I also didn't tell anyone because I had shame around it. I'm like, oh my God, I'm such a loser. This didn't work out. It was a big slap in the face for me because I was trying to prove to my family that, like, I'm not going to be white trash like everybody else. I'm going to marry up and I have this cushy life and a big fat ring, and didn't work out. But either way, it served me in a way that it actually broke me down to the point that I realized, like, what do I really want? Right. And again, like when you think about why do you open a business or why do you do anything? If you're doing it from like a scarcity mentality, like there's only so long you can do that until like your nervous system goes like, okay, girl, like give it up. Or something breaks down. Some kind of sign or symbol is going to happen, and it's probably happening right now. And you're going, oh, that's just because of this, or that's just because of that. But for me, I've realized over time that like these are like divine intervention. This is the universe talking to me. And it's just these different things that kind of come up. But the Beijing story is like, it kept coming up in my mind. Maybe I should go back. This is safe. Because I had the kind of outward looking lifestyle that's like, oh, I didn't have to pay bills. I didn't actually have to work. I didn't actually have to worry about much. But man, that's lonely. And you pay a price for that. And I just wasn't willing to pay the price anymore. And I was like, so much so that I'm going to move to a country where I don't speak the language. I don't know anyone. And I have to turn around a failing spa that's not made a penny in 2 years. And I have to do that like rather quickly.
And alone,
And
because
alone.
I'm guessing you didn't have any friends who were living there.
No, none. And like also, nothing in English. So like there would be 2 weeks where I didn't even have a conversation with anyone because I had no one to talk to. There's no, well, back then, no YouTube, no Facebook, no Netflix, no Instagram. Like I didn't have anything and I didn't
Which
have
was
time to figure it
also a
out.
divine intervention because it
Oh,
forced
totally.
you to be still and silent and with yourself.
1,000%. And like I read so many books during that time because I had nothing else to do. I'd go home after work. I got fit. So I started to introduce that into my lifestyle and I read. That's all I could do. I didn't have anything else going on.
Wow.
And yeah, I mean, like that, that in itself was such a big transition. But then also, once I got to that top of the ladder and it was like, oh, the view up here is really shitty. I don't like this.
Isn't it funny? Like we have this is so, I'm like shook over here because I knew some of your story, but it is just proof again, like attracts like. You and I have so many parallels. It's crazy. And the fact that the old you didn't have humility and were operating an ego. And the very reason you were chosen out of the hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of people in Selling with Soul, why you dramatically stood out, was for your humility.
Which
That's
is like,
fucking cool.
it like literally makes my armpit sweat. The reason why is because like when I first started working in my early 20s, the first mentor I ever had, he said to me, and I will like never forget, he was like, unless you learn humility and compassion, you are never going to be successful. Because back then, I was even worse when I was younger. I grew up really like a lot of tragedy, a lot of trauma going on in my early years. And I carried so much anger and I was like, I was awful to be around. Like looking back, I'm like, oh,
I
whoa,
was too. I was like a wounded
scrappy.
animal, scrappy. Don't fuck with me. You can't
Oh,
hurt
yeah.
me.
Also, Tiffany, I am 5 feet tall. Okay. And I used to go out in my 20s, Thursday to Sunday, like clockwork, looking for an argument. Like, don't even breathe the wrong way around me because, like, I'm going to go off. That's how I used to be. It was so bad. And my mentor was like, Erin, if you don't like dial it in, if you don't get this figured out, like, you're going to be stuck. You're going to live in that small, crappy town. You're not going to, like, you can't do anything. And he was so right. Because even probably when you think about it, like, I won't work with someone unless they can be coached, which requires humility. It requires you to go, I don't know stuff and I have to sit and listen. And sometimes I'm going to hear shit that I don't like about myself. And I'm going to want to be defensive and I'm going to want to shut it down. But you can't because, like, that's the whole point of coaching. Yeah, it's like looking back to who I used to be versus where I am now. Even now, I'm still like, I feel like I'm still a bit much for most people, but I'm like the tame version of it.
I think that's any highly successful entrepreneur. I mean, we're nuts. I mean, you have
Yeah.
to be a little crazy and unwell. I mean, that's
Yeah.
just so because there are so very few people doing this, but it can look like to those of you who are in it because you've trained your mental algorithm and literal social media algorithms to whether it's a beauty business or you're in real estate or you're a doctor, whatever it is, all you're seeing are everyone's a coach. I'm sure you get this from people. Oh, everyone who is in the beauty business is now a coach. Oh, everyone who does, eyebrows also, also is doing this. Everyone's doing this. And it's like, that is not true. I promise you it's not true. It's what you are interested in, you click on. So you literally end up seeing all the people online and in real life. There aren't that
Yeah.
many people who actually want to go and do things like this and who will actually follow through. It is scary. And I do think people need to acknowledge themselves for taking that leap and doing that thing. I would love to hear from you. What are some of the most common mistakes that make your heart ache when you have clients coming to you and you're like, oh, like I know there's a similar five things I hear over and over again. One is they've spent all this money on things like SEO and Google ads and Facebook ads and now they're tied up in leases for lasers and other things, and they've done all this and there is literally no marketing plan. There's none of that. It's like they have very little money left, and now they're afraid to like hire someone, for example, like you, not because it's you, but because it's like, oh my God, like I only have this left. And now they're in that spot. So, what are a lot of the common things that you see from people in that esthetician aesthetic world?
So it's definitely what you just mentioned is they've sunk tens of thousands of dollars into marketing when first of all, you don't even know what your brand represents. You don't even have a vision or values locked out. Like, what are you even for? Therefore, if you don't know who you are as a brand, you can't market yourself. So you're marketing a bunch of things from a person who told you what to say, who's never owned a med spa. So that's their first, like, that's the first one. The other one is, yes, you get sold. And like, be reminded that when you buy skincare lines or you buy lasers or whatever equipment, the job of the person selling it is to sell you, right? They don't give a shit if your business makes money because they got their commission. So you are getting sold to. So ask the right question. So, and those ones, right? Those are like the investment that you have to put up for that. That's 200K starting point, right? The other one is they invest a lot of capital in a rental property where they're like, I want it to look beautiful and I want chandeliers and water fountains. I'm like, girl, if you are good at what you do, people will see you in a park in a tent. I promise you.
This is how far I go. And you guys, I'm in LA. Okay. If I am sourcing a new medical professional or in the aesthetic space and I see on their website that their space is really over the top, I'm out. You know who did my explant surgery for my breast implants and my lift? This motherfucker's place was as basic as you can get. I'm talking bare bones and pristine surgery. And I paid 1/3 of the price that most all these other people that you're seeing talking about it that went to Beverly Hills and Orange County and all this because they didn't have all the overhead. So I actually can get turned off if a space is too over the top.
And you can tell, right? Because you can tell if they put their time and energy into their skill and the client journey and the client experience, or did they put all their time and energy into looking good? And there's no client service, there's no follow-up. They don't give a shit. So you have to be aware. And also don't put your capital in a building you don't own. Like minimal, you're going to have to put money in, but a lot of people go, okay, I just put $150,000 into the structure of this building, plumbing, electrical, flooring, walls. Like you can't take that with you. So don't make that mistake. Move into a place that's okay and you can fix it up as you go because people actually care more. Like what you just said, they care more is like, are you going to take good care of me? Are you going to give me a good service? And is it good value? Do I feel good? Do I feel taken care of? Because if that's the case, I'm going to come back.
What are some of the biggest marketing mistakes that you see of, these service-based entrepreneurs that you just cringe when you see it because there's no way it is converting into any clients?
Okay, so one of the reasons why I loved selling with soul so much is because it's like helps me position myself as a coach as well. Because in our industry, in the spa and beauty world, most people don't do sales. And you've probably had some experience with this. It's like, I'm an educator and I'm going to teach you all the things that you should be doing. And then if you want to buy, it's totally fine.
Or
And
they'll
you're like,
say, I don't want to sell. I have this
I don't
business,
want to
but I don't
sell.
want to sell. And it's like, okay, if you have any kind of a business, I'm talking any form, your main job is to sell, or you don't have a business.
Well, totally. Because I remind clients all the time, like, do you think a dentist doesn't have to sell? Like, literally, if you are human on planet Earth, you're selling something. Otherwise, like, how are you getting by? You're selling yourself through your outfit, what you're saying to your spouse, like, oh, we're going on vacation here, or I want this house. Like, you're positioning yourself to sell. And I hear all the time, I don't want to be pushy. I don't want to turn them off. I just educate them. I want them to decide. Well, like, listen, guys, your spa isn't Starbucks where people roll up and just tell you an order and you do it. Like, you're supposed to be the expert. Step
I
into that
want you to
role.
tell me what to do.
100%. Like, that's why I got in my car and drove here and took the time out of my schedule so an expert could tell me what I need to be doing. And a lot of the time, like, again, you go back to that. Like, I just see it so clearly as like there's such a big wound around worthiness and like validation of, am I good enough? And that's normally why I see people don't sell, is because they're like, I'll just let the client tell me if they want it. But like, girl, they came to you because you know what you're doing. They didn't go to aesthetic school. They are not a nurse injector. They don't know the latest greatest, and they don't know what your laser machine does until you ask, like, what's bothering you, or like, why did you come in today? Like, literally, you just want to listen for those pain points so you can reveal back to them how you could solve that. And if they don't make a move, they're going to stay in that pain.
Right. Like
But
you have to help them help themselves and stand. And like you said, the worthiness part is also like standing in your conviction. You're not pretending to be an expert in everything. Like if we use example of like the aesthetics world, I mean, there's a million different specialties within that world. You don't need to pretend that you're an expert at all those things. You specialize in a select handful of things and clientele. And we've got to like own that part in it. But does that mean there isn't someone else who doesn't have decades more experience than you, that isn't, so to speak, insta famous in that world? There's always going to be someone who's older than you, who has a different look than you, who's made more money than you, who has more followers than you. And it doesn't matter. That's all like ego crap that's going on. What drew you to selling with soul specifically? Because on the outside, someone could go, God, I mean, obviously you know how to sell. So what made you go, I need to be in here? There's a certain side of my business that I know I can grow by being in here.
yeah, I know that I could sell more. And what I realize is, like, I have those wounds too, where my worthiness is challenged, my validation is challenged. And when I think about, even over the last year, when I get on like discovery calls with potential new clients, and I'm talking more about like, oh, this is what we offer instead of what we actually provide for them. And so some of it was more that I recognize that, wow, I still, even though I'm aware, I still have work to do here. I could still show up better in a capacity with more tools and resources to serve these people in a better way. Because again, like, I follow my ethical compass, right? I'm not trying to push things on people that aren't a good fit, but also I'm doing them a disservice if I don't show up in a way that helps them cross the line. Like, they booked the appointment because they clearly need help. And I'm not helping them by backing away from having the conversation that needs to be had, right? Like, you said this on one of the calls that was like, what would you say right now, like real talk, to the person who hesitates, where they've got a problem and they've been stuck in that spot for X amount of time? What would you say? And that struck me because I was like, sometimes I just don't ever say it because I'm like, well, then they're going to think I'm a bitch, or then they're going to think that I'm being pushy. And like, all of my stories started coming up, and they still pop up every now and again. And it was like, selling with soul was the thing that I needed to really figure out, okay, what is my voice when it comes to selling? Like, how can I still sell with authenticity, Sell from a point that I know I'm here to help and I can help. But what is some of the language or verbiage or ways that I maybe don't yet have? What are those things that I don't have yet? And so that's what really appealed to me was like, if you're someone who's like, you know, that you can unlock a new level inside of your business, and it's not about the dollars and cents that you can make, it's really about the lives that you can transform. And especially what I do when it's like, when I can get someone to unlock their potential because they finally invested in themselves and go, holy shit, like I didn't realize my business could be this profitable, or I didn't realize I could have a staff of 15. I didn't realize I could have 3 locations. Like that was a pipe dream before. And when we work together, we unlock those things for you if that's your dream. But if I don't know how to get you to the point to say, yes, okay, I'm ready, I'm in, I'm going to stop making excuses. Because part of that is like me in that sales call, I have to be able to create an environment where they feel open to say yes.
It is very humbling
Yeah.
to do that, especially when someone does a version of what you do or you're in a similar industry. And I can't tell you how many people cry on calls with me and they're like, I'm sorry, I'm crying. And I go, no, it's a good thing because that one means you really want it. And two, you feel safe. You feel
Yeah.
safe here with me. And I take that seriously. You know, that feeling of, and I know you've experienced this also as like a practitioner in the aesthetic world, where you've had those clients where they're like, oh, I finally found someone who I can trust, who does great work, who's going to give it to me straight, like make me feel beautiful. And it is so refreshing because there's so much shit that's out there. And if you don't present yourself in a way and position it in a way for them to work with you, those same people are going to go and hire someone else who I can almost guarantee you there's a high likelihood is a scam in doing fantasy marketing.
Yeah. They're not as good as you and they're not in it for the same reasons. Totally. Yeah. I just like, I realized when I started listening to your podcast, I was like, okay, I could dig in a bit deeper here. Because the hard part is when you're facing someone and they are on the verge of tears and you have to remind them, like, hey, is it possible that you're stuck in this much pain because you hesitate, because you're in fear? Like, how long do you want to be stuck? And reminding someone of the hell that they're in is hard to do, right? And sometimes you're like, how do you say that? How do you do that? How do you get comfortable being the person to remind them that they're the problem? Right? Like it's
That's
not
why I
easy.
give you guys scripts like those questions, because until you've practiced it enough, it is hard. Just like when you're a good friend or a good partner, someone who's a good friend, you're someone who's willing to have hard conversations, even if you know your friend or your partner is going to be hurt or pissed at you. That doesn't mean you're mean about it, but we can't always control how someone takes it. I've had many clients get mad at me and then they come back and they're like, I'm sorry, I wasn't mad at you, I was really mad at myself. And I'm like, that's okay, because I'm willing to tell you the truth in order for you to hear what you need to hear to get the result you're saying you want.
Yeah. I 100% agree. Like I literally have a module in my program called difficult conversations. Like how do you fire someone like in a very humane way? Like I remember when I was in corporate, I had to fire 8 people in one day.
Oof.
Like imagine. I
And
mean,
if
by
they
the eighth
were
one, I was
all
like,
eight like entitled, terrible, horrible people, I probably wouldn't feel bad, but my guess is they weren't.
no. And like they didn't deserve it. And it was not my decision, which was even more difficult because it's like, okay, Erin, you have to get into character here. But it's very difficult to acquire the right skill in a very humane way and in a way that is like allows that other person to be open and receptive to tell them like you're the bottleneck in your progress, like you're actually the problem, do you realize that, right? Like people don't like to hear that.
I'm only laughing because your like entire face is frozen like mine. And then And when you're talking, it's like, I'm going, this is really good. Her face is frozen. That's what I always say. This is great that I have little movement in my face because I'm a very expressive person. And it just
Oh,
like
yeah.
takes it down a notch. So, why do you feel that playing cheap with your business? Let's say we have someone listening now who's doing permanent makeup and now they're coming up against, oh, the economy. Oh, now everyone's doing permanent makeup. It's not like a new hot thing anymore. Maybe it was just a trend and they're in that whole spot and they've bought courses. Maybe they've done some group programs, but they've never really done the holy grail, like the higher level stuff, like working with someone like at your level, right? And they're playing cheap with their business in all your years of experience and even like owning your own shit. Like, what is the cost of playing cheap with your business?
Like you're on that hamster wheel forever because it's like you're looking for what's that quick fix, quick fix, quick fix. And there really like isn't one. When you look at the biggest, most robust, longest standing businesses, do you think that they took shortcuts and like little tiny courses here and there and they dabbled? You can't dabble and make a 7-figure business. Like you have to literally go all in because if you don't, like you are literally going to, I think I posted this the other day. It's like that might take you 10 years to figure out because you're hesitating. And every time you hesitate, the thing is like, if you're trying to save money, it's actually costing you money in the long run because you think that it's going to save you money, but it's actually costing you time. And the difference is you can print more money and you can't make more time.
And the money you could have made in that time on top of it. I mean, listen, I was a cheap ass my first 5 years building my agency. I was afraid to spend the money on people weren't really coaches then. They were more like executive coaches and mentors or whatever. I knew they existed. I even had some people very nicely tell me I should probably invest in one. And I went, oh, I will someday when I'm making enough money.
Mm.
And I know you've had to have heard this in your business. I hear it from people too. And it's like, well, when I'm making enough money, that think of how insane that sounds. That's like someone saying, well, I'll join the gym once I'm in better shape.
Yeah.
It's like
I will
really
get a
wild.
financial advisor when I'm out of debt. Like, girl, you don't know how to get out of debt. The whole point of the financial advisor is to create a plan to get you out of debt. Like, you clearly only know how to get in debt, right? And it's the same thing. It's like, I'll work with you when I can afford it. I'm like, the whole point is that you don't know how to figure out how to afford someone like me. You don't know how to figure out how you can unlock more revenue and sales. Like, I help you do that. I literally had a client in my like membership program who was like, okay, I hosted a dinner and she came to the dinner and she was like, wow, working with you in person just at the dinner. This was so much value that she's like, I think actually I need to do one-to-one. And then she said, but can I start next month because I want to save up? And I said, well, she said in the fall. And I said, okay, well, here's the thing. You're going to not make a move because you're not going to be ready in the fall because you haven't figured out how to make the money yet. And that's why you need to work with me, right? Because if you would have figured it out already, you'd already have it.
And there's a reason why there are business loans. I don't know any business that didn't have a loan. No one would give my ass a loan in my first business. So I used credit cards, but that's still a loan, right?
Yeah.
But I don't know any business owner unless you're still taking a loan, even if if your husband's investing in it or your rich uncle or whatever. But there's no business that continues to grow without making strategic investments to grow it. Period.
Oh yeah, we got that credit card on max. Like
That's what I get. What is going on? I have like literally $50,000 credit card bills now, and I laugh like I mean, I thought I was balling when I got a $56,000 a year salary. My credit card bill is 50,000 a month. I mean, I'm also a mileage whore, so I put
So
everything on the
I'm
card.
getting into that game, right? And
Get into it. It's worth it.
I'm like looking at the points and I'm like, oh my gosh, I have 200,000 points. And I'm like, that means I put $200,000 on this card. But you're like,
Exactly.
it's such a different world. But again, like when I started listening to you and then like going into selling with soul, it just, the thing that it opened me up to was yes, it gets to be easy. Yes, it doesn't have to feel hard. And yes, it is available. Like, again, we're like kind of teasing that people are like, well, I'll work with you when I can afford it. But the reality is like, you haven't figured that out just yet. Right. And so when I started with the course, I only had a certain amount of what I knew at that time. But by the end of it, I was like, holy shit, there's no reason why this shouldn't be an 8-figure business. And like, I literally didn't know 6 weeks earlier that that could have been available. And that's why, like, for me, I continue to go all in because I want to learn from experts. I want to learn what I don't know. Because if I just lean in all the way or I put people around me that have done it before or know how to do it, I'm like, I can actually get there faster. So, what I've learned over the years, and I tell this to clients all the time, is like, look back. Was there ever a time that you completely let yourself down? Like, why would you start now? You always were able to figure it out. So, like, you're going to figure out this money thing. And now you actually have me. We're going to figure this out because I'm not going to let my clients fail and be like, oh, well, sorry about your luck. That's luck of the draw. No, it's like I'm still invested to make sure that as long as you're showing up, as long as you're doing the work, as long as you're leaning in, as long as you're applying what you are learning, implementing it, asking for feedback, and refining, I'm going to show up for you and we're going to sort it out. And we always do because I mean, I've done it over and over again. And honestly, if I can
It's
do it in a
actually
country where I don't,
simple. It's simple.
it's very
I'm never
simple.
going to tell you, and I know you would never tell someone it's easy. It's simple.
Simple. You're
The
correct.
hard
Yes.
part is all your own shit.
100%. It's all the stories, right? I'm like, because I would tell people like, if I was able to figure it out in a country where no one on my team spoke English, like somehow I still was able to turn around that business and make it make money within 18 months.
In a
Well, actually, it was 3 months, but
highly competitive market. Like
oh,
more
totally.
hotels in a square mile than anywhere I could possibly think of.
Well, yeah, and because they cluster, right? And they've got like the little, like almost like little communities where you don't really leave the 3 block radius. So like all of your competition is on the block. So like you throw a rock and you're like, oh yeah, there and there and there. But I tell people like I'm not special. I'm just extremely resilient around like if I fall, I'm getting back up. Everything is either I learned something or I won. It's like you can't lose because it's a mindset.
I
Yes, you need
love this.
like a certain amount of tools to say like, okay, we know that this and this works, but also anybody that I've ever come across that they're like, oh, I've got the strategy. If you don't have the mindset to match that strategy, you're screwed. It's not going to work.
Agreed. 1,000%. Thank you so much for coming on and for being you and all the work that you've done on yourself that has brought you to this point and how you're paying it forward to so many people. I'm going to make sure that all of her stuff, if you're interested in her programs, she has a podcast too, her social media, all those things, we will link it in the show notes and in the description here on YouTube for you. If you guys love this episode, take a screenshot of it and tag me at ProjectME with Tiffany. We'd love to know your questions, what you thought about it. And you've just been like such a pleasure to coach and so
Thank you.
refreshing. And you're incredible. I want to acknowledge you, just like you're a real deal. You get the Tiff stamp of approval, which is very rare. Like you're legit, you give a shit, you have the receipts, and period. It's like, to me, there is no one else someone needs to work with in that particular area. You guys already have it. It all exists. The how is out there, the people who've already paved the way. It's a matter of you getting out of your own way and doing it. Thank you for coming on.
Thank you for having me. I loved every second of it.
If you enjoyed this podcast, please write a 5-star review on iTunes. Not only will this make me super happy, but it will allow more listeners to find our special show. Simply help me help others.